Hello, 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 and welcome back to yet another episode of Electricpreneur Secrets, the Electricians podcast, where me and my homie Joe show up with you guys every week to help you master your sales, simplify pricing, and deliver premium level electrical service. Welcome to your freemium daily coach call from a couple of master electricians with business addictions. The cost of admission for you here today is nothing. Sit back in the hot seat. Take everything we give, just promise to take action. Joe, we got a special show today, bringing in nothing less than expecting tenfold from Brian Penfold. How are you
Damn
doing,
right.
brother? You excited for this?
I'm so excited, and for like so many reasons. And one of the reasons is Brian is not only an amazing person, but he's like a great example of what a good student is. He comes to class consistently, he asks questions, he does the work, and he puts in the grind. And it's always a pleasure having him come because when you have good people, good things follow. So I can't wait to hear the secrets he's going to be sharing.
Bro, if I can say it, I'm noticing a bit of a trend and a bias to
Mhm.
podcast interview guests. And it seems to be you like to invite people that keep showing up and trying real hard to do the thing, man.
And that's the thing, at the end of the day, like the biggest wins are from the biggest and most consistent activities. It's not just doing one big thing once. It's I'm willing to do any size thing every single day consistently. And Brian is one of those guys who does that thing.
Well, I love it, man. I'm super proud of Brian. I know you are too. Here's the thing on this show, on this interview, Brian's going to share some of his electricpreneur secrets, how he's basically 3x'd his revenue in a year, like
Mhm.
really close to that. He's going to share how he has went from one option, emailing it over, to growing a team that's making incredible sales on his behalf, even,
Mhm.
right? Not only that, but his first platinum, what it was like, how it happened, how he turned an average, what he would have been a $400 ticket into a almost 10K premium service. And of course, a very happy customer who he's still in touch with
Mhm.
today. And most of all, man, maybe the proudest thing, it's a real tearjerker, but Brian kind of met forces with his dad on this. And he really
Mhm.
did take over his dad's business. And this business has been long standing in the community, and many people are very proud of it. But ultimately, it doesn't mean that it was always in the best position. So Brian tells
Mhm.
us how he's fully got his dad's support and even made him proud, having more money at the end of the month at the end
Mhm.
of the money than ever
Mhm.
before, man. I'm so proud of Brian, and I can't wait to introduce him here. You ready for this?
Let's make it happen. Let's go.
All right, let's bring Brian in and let's get it going. All right. Welcome, Brian, man. Super pumped to have you here. Another Canadian sensation, if I might add. Joe, you're outnumbered, brother. The
It's
Northerners are
a
back.
listen, I like Canada better anyway, so it's all good. No arguments. No arguments.
Despite many people thinking I live in an igloo, Brian, I think it's actually routinely more cold where you are than where I am.
It is, yeah. I think in the winter it gets down to minus 25 some days.
That's Celsius, Joe. Don't get any crazy ideas.
Celsius.
I was gonna say negative 25 Celsius. My first thought is like, well, a cold weather kit would still help with that because that covers down to negative 50. But I'm pretty sure at negative 25 Celsius, you're getting pretty damn close.
Yeah, yeah, it's cold, man. Where I used to live, it would get to like minus 40, but I was pretty far north. I'm not there anymore. I'm closer to Vancouver now. Mostly just rain here. Anyways, Brian, thanks for coming on, brother. I am super pumped. We've been anticipating this interview for a
Mhm.
while, and I really would love to hear how and why you got started in the trade in the first place. What brings you here?
So I got started in the trade like a lot of other people. My father was an electrician. He had a business for a long time since
Mhm.
1978. So I followed in his footsteps. I did my whole apprenticeship through my father, and then things started to um, really kind of slow down. So I went elsewhere. Took a few years somewhere else. It ended up not working out somewhere else, and I ended up going to Toronto Pearson at the airport there.
Oh, really? You worked at the
Yep,
airport for a while.
I worked at the airport for a year and a half, doing maintenance on the the exterior buildings there, not anything inside, but we had the contract for the outside. And it was shift work. So we would do like 7 on and 7 off.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just not the type of guy to sit around. So I said, hey dad, like company's still open. Why don't I try and go and make some money on the side, right? He was, I mean, at this time, my father would have been early 70s. So he was not doing much with it, just kept it open because. So I would go out and work 7 days at the airport, so 7 12s, and then I would go out on my 7 days off and I would work to try and establish the company as well. So
7
that's how
on,
I
7
really
off.
I got started with everything. And then if you guys remember those 737s being grounded due to the improper navigation,
Mm-hmm.
so when those got grounded, Pearson took quite the hit financially, and they did a bunch of layoffs. And because we were bottom of the totem pole, we essentially got laid off. Lucky for me is I had already been doing this for about a year, and I, developed relationships with clients, working so much that I was actually able to transition to the business fairly smoothly.
Nice.
Can we just
Nice.
call a quick timeout about that? Because like the amount of foresight that happened there may not have even been foresight. It was simply you were working 7 days a week. And instead of saying, I'm going to have a nice, relaxing 7 days or do your own personal work or like manage your household, it was like, how can I work more? Then started continued on expanding a business. And then was the thought like, hey, is this like a safety net? Like, what made you decide to just go out and do it?
Well, one of the reasons would be because I just can't sit at home. I'm not that personality. I have to be constantly doing things. The second would be I just had my first son at the time, and I wanted to make sure that we were financially stable as well. I did actually take a bit of a pay cut to go to Pearson, but I thought, well, like, let me experience this. So I did take a bit of a pay cut there, and I needed to like bridge the gap a little bit to make a little bit more money. But yeah, those that would have been the two reasons I was doing it. And then I also had the vision that we all have. I did want to one day, grow the company and make it into something great. So Pearson wasn't my long-term plan. I was eventually going to switch over anyways, but it was, yeah, just putting in the time and the effort to do that.
You mentioned bridging the gap. There's a gap in my head, Brian, that I need you to bridge. And I'm going to admit, it's in part childish here, but I've always wondered when I saw other tradies at the airports, what is security really like for you to get your tool pouch in to the secure side of the airport?
Oh, so you have what's called a rake. It's spelled RAIC, and you have to go through like extensive security in order to get this rake that we had. It's like a little card, and you would scan it, and you were able to bring in tools that might be considered a weapon, but because it was for maintenance purposes or construction purposes, tradesmen are allowed to carry these items around.
Crazy, crazy. But they would check your lunch too, I'd imagine. Like,
No,
because I can't bring a
they
sandwich
wouldn't. They
into a
wouldn't
plane.
check
I
your
keep
lunch.
trying.
Most of the time, we were just buying it because there's places everywhere.
That's a
That
lot
makes
of crap
sense.
food.
Like, I wish they gave you some sort of allotment because then also you need to have dietary concerns put into consideration. But I think it's really cool. We actually did stuff at IBM once where they went through every single tool and every single like literally in like different things. How many wire nuts? So I didn't know if it was that stringent.
No, not to that extent.
That's awesome, man. Anyway, good share. So
Thank you.
you jump back into your dad's company, really the family company now, I would rather say. It's yours now, right?
So me and my dad I still maintain a 50-50 ownership with him,
Nice.
just for liability purposes and a few other purposes as well.
Is he
Um,
active?
no, in the office he's active. He likes to
Nice.
um make sure things are paid, and he likes to keep an eye on the bank accounts, make sure there's no funny business going on. It's actually funny. I did have him working with me a month and a half ago for 2 days. And he's actually able to do it. I mean, he's in his early 80s now, and he was
Wow.
actually able to still put on plugs, receptacles, hang lights. I was surprised.
You know, it's amazing. It's like any of us who had parents or grandparents in the trades, like I remember my grandfather was a machinist and the other was a welder. And it's insane how much these skills transfer, even though you don't use them in years. It's like 40 years go by and you're like, oh yeah, I can still do that. And you hop back into it and it's like riding a bike. It's really
Yeah,
amazing to have those
exactly.
skills.
That's exactly what it was like.
Were the clients concerned at all when you brought an 80-year-old to work?
No,
No.
no, they weren't. I just said, like, look, this is my dad. He wants to give me a hand with the project. He's adamant. He wants to give me a hand. Like, I don't even
That's
have a
awesome.
choice. But yeah, no, yeah, they were fine. They were fine with it. And like, he actually did a really good job, helped us stay on time. And he's like, and it was nice to work with him because it brought back some nostalgia memories from when I was working with him as an apprentice. So like that was also like really nice too.
Mhm.
Awesome. Brian, what's your dad's name again?
It's Trevor.
Trevor. Well, Trevor, if you're listening to this, all the respect in the world, man. I hope at 80 I could still even do half of what it sounds like you did with Brian the other day. So
Mhm.
thank you for that. That's awesome. What a testament to a great electrician years and years later.
I'll
I
send
mean,
him the
that,
podcast. I'll send him this one so he can listen to it.
Awesome. Awesome, man.
love it.
So one of the things you had said prior to the interview was that, jumping ahead really to your accomplishments, you made this year what took you 3 years before to make.
Yes, yes, it's true.
That's that's a
Mhm.
big statement. So can you walk us through what do you think were the kind of roadblocks that you were facing before that were limiting you from where you are now?
Mhm.
The roadblocks I was facing before is I was just like a lot of guys out there. I was going in, quoting the job, emailing it over, giving them one option. Like this is it, take it or leave it. And then praying, hoping and praying that I would get a response that I got the job. And it was just when I look back at it, it was just such an inefficient and like not the right way of doing things.
Mhm.
Did that
I
ever
mean,
keep you up? No, go ahead, Joe.
no, sorry. I'm like, I'm all for faith. Don't get me wrong, but there's a certain thing you have to focus on, which is if you're only making it happen by accident or by luck, it's hard to bet on luck and it's hard to scale with luck. So it's like you might have connected with one person, they might have wanted it done, and it's a lot of mites. So I'm glad that you changed your process.
Yeah, for the better, much better.
Mhm.
Can we dive a bit deeper on this? Because I don't think this one gets enough attention, Brian and Joe. That whole email it over, one option, that's the ultimatum. Like, do you remember, Brian, why you would choose that path each time? Do you remember those days and kind of what was the point of just emailing it over?
Yeah, it's something you guys talk a lot about before is we're tradesmen, we're not businessmen. No one told us how to do this stuff. We just
Mhm.
kind of take information from previous employers or take information from what we've heard online on how to do things and try and do it ourselves. But if we don't have any education in business or anything really related to that for that matter, it's a difficult way of doing things when you're not educated.
Mhm.
Do you
Makes
remember
sense.
the feeling of waiting for a reply after you
Ugh.
emailed it over? I'm stumbling on my words here. I feel like sometimes I can recall it felt like days would go by and you have that lay awake at night feeling of like, do I call again? Do I
Yeah,
text? Do I email again? Am I
especially on the
pestering them?
larger jobs. You were I would be concerned whether if I'd get this job or not. How am I going to keep my guy busy? I would have that fear for sure. And then even I wouldn't even follow up. I'd be like, well, if they wanted me to do the job, they would let me know. I would, that was my style of thinking before too.
That's so wild to think about as well, because like they say, like the fortune is in the follow up. And the thought of, well, one, we weren't presenting, we were only emailing it. We weren't
Mhm.
offering options. We were only giving one choice. Then we
Mhm.
were literally, it's just called a spray and pray. I'm going to send out a bunch of estimates and I'm going to pray that someone takes one of them. But then we didn't even follow up on those. Like looking back at it, it almost seems like you're looking at a darker past How does it feel being from there to here? Like, how much different does it feel?
It's night and day. It's just a way different feeling. I feel like I have more control over my
Mm-hmm.
company now. I have more control over things I didn't have control over before. It's like I said, it's such a huge difference, and I can only thank you guys for that.
Well, we're
Thank you.
honored to have you as a student, and honestly, I want to actually give you a shout out on this one. I wasn't planning on announcing it, but I just want to say one of the reasons why I love working with you so much is you do come to class consistently. But unlike what you consider a bad student, you don't just come in and say, I'm just going to sit back and do something else and have my screen off and not actually pay attention. Every single time you're there, videos on, notes are out, audio is on. And anytime I say, does anyone have a question? You're always the first one to raise your hand. The reason why I love that so much and why I wanted to give you praise for it is because you're taking the knowledge and you're applying it to your life on a daily basis.
Hmm.
That is what's creating this insane amount of consistency. You can't just do something once and have it absorbed as a habit. It's the continuous mental exercise of making this your new way of being. And I just wanted to personally thank you and say, I am so proud of what you've accomplished, both mentally, financially, and business wise. You're really a great person, and I'm honored to be your coach.
Thanks, Joe.
It's
Yeah,
really
it's
welcome,
awesome.
brother.
I love seeing your team in too. We were talking about it before,
Mm-hmm.
and your CSR was showing up, which congratulations again on pulling the
Mm-hmm.
trigger on the CSR. And you have someone selling for you now too. Is that right?
Yes, I do have a sales tech out now selling for me.
Awesome. And it sounded like before the show you were sharing a few of his kind of recent wins. Had an uptick in the last 2 weeks that basically was like 50% of his sales just unlocked all of a sudden. What does it feel like to have someone now doing that for you where it used to always have to be you?
That's a big one.
Again, yeah, night and day. Just the relief of me not having to go and sell everything, and yeah, it's hard to explain, but it's a really a relieving feeling, and I just couldn't be happier at this point because now I've got something where, you know, even the guy who's doing it now, he can do it. I mean, I can do it. Like anyone can do it. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
not difficult. It's, there are a few hiccups in the beginning, of course, but that's just like when you learn anything. But it's just such an easy process to now hand it off to someone, and they can like just do it themselves and report you back the wins that they're getting. And it's an amazing feeling to be able to now delegate sales, whereas before I didn't even think that was possible. I thought like it was going to be me in sales, even with like 10, 15 guys, it would always be me. So this is just like a an eye-opening feeling. It's just a crazy experience that and now I'm actually having someone out there selling for me and doing it successfully.
I'm sure there's a business owner out there who's in a similar situation to you, but just a little bit before. And I want to kind of speak to that, and maybe you can help in that regard. When you were doing it all by yourself, did you often have to feel like everyone's back was on yours? Like you had to provide for your employees, you had to provide for their families, your family. What are you? Did you share that feeling?
No, it's just it's right, Joe. I mean, you feel like you're carrying 1,000 pounds on you all the time when you've got all these responsibilities of having to make sure food is on the table, not for just yourself, but also for your employees. But now that I've got me selling and Colton selling, it's way different. Where it's like I'm able to take so much weight off of my back, so much pressure is taken off me, and now I can kind of step back and work on the business a little bit more rather than in the business.
Something so cool if we can create a visual here is almost like imagine a team of horses. You can have one horse pulling the cart, and the cart could get pretty heavy, but the horse has to have its own motivation to move forward. But if you take a team of horses, even just two, and you put them side by side or even one a little bit in the head, the motivation of each other and the continued momentum of a lighter load allows them to do significantly more with less energy output. And I feel like that's what's happening in your company because you were strapped to everything. Every yoke was on you, attached to every load. And all you did was simply say, I'm building a cart. Everything's going to go in the cart. I'm going to have a second horse pull with me. And I can't stress how proud of you I am for pulling that off.
Yeah, and if there's one thing I would say to another business owner who's going through the same thing as me, who does have techs out there, I would just give your tech the opportunity. Just pull them aside one day and say, hey, look, do you want to get into more of a service tech sales tech role? And then if they do want to do it, it's such an teachable process that they can go and start doing it themselves. In the worst case, they just say, no, I want to be an installer. Okay, then you just ask someone else if they want to take on that role. And again, it's such an easy process. He's doing like so well. And to be honest, I never ever thought he would want to do this. I mean, I thought he was just some installer who wanted to put in his 9 to 5 and go home. So when he said he wanted to do it, I was shocked, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's excelling with it, and it's taken all this pressure off me, like we were just saying. I can't stress it enough. Like, if you've got techs in the field that are just installers, reach out to them and just say, look, do you want to get into a more involved sales role? And like, you won't be sorry that you did that.
That's really powerful. You know what? No one's ever said that on this show before. I think other than we may have touched on it before, but like in a client interview, Brian, you just hit something so important. And it's really about understanding what your staff want. Having that journey laid out. I always encourage people, like, keep a journal of these things, of these conversations, of these notes, because you can't remember everything. You got the business, you got your staff, you got your leadership, you still have your family and friends and home life. There's too much to remember, but if you'll keep track of what your employees want, then you can help them achieve that. And that's a win-win-win. Business wins, your client wins, and you win. I mean, it's just awesome that you brought that up. Let me ask
And
you a question.
don't assume anything, right? Don't assume that they don't want to do it.
100%. Yeah, couldn't agree more. It sounds like you 100% feel you made the right choice jumping in with Service Loop Electrical.
100%.
That one's rhetorical. There was definitely a wrong answer there. No, I'm just bugging. What really was that kind of initial point where you just had enough of where you were at? Like what finally caused you to even look in and have a conversation with us and decide to take this chance with us?
It's a good question, Clay. I just felt very stuck. Like, I just wasn't going anywhere. And my like entrepreneurial fire like inside was just really dim, and I just hated what I was doing. And I just, what we were talking about before, when you're going in and hoping and praying that you're going to get this job and you don't get it, and you have such a low closing rate. I think it was like 30% before. You have to change, because if nothing changes, then nothing changes. So you have to do something. And then I saw you guys on the podcast a few times, and it was eye-opening listening to you guys. So I reached out, and then here we are today.
Did you ever think you'd be on it?
On the podcast?
Yeah.
To be honest, no, I didn't. I'm not the best talker. I'll be the first one to admit that. But I'm honored that you guys asked me.
Can we just stop that for a second? Because you say that you're not the best talker, but your closing ratio says otherwise. You went from 30% to 65%.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
Yeah.
For someone, so right now, if the industry standard is 40, you're above industry standard by a lot, and you consider yourself not a great talker. I think you are very good at conversation, but I think it has to be something that's authentic. When you and I are having authentic conversation, well, I feel like you and I could talk for hours. So it's really just unlocking your space where you feel safe to converse.
Good point, Joe.
So don't ever talk down to yourself, man, because that thought stays in your head. You are a great talker. And you know what? You have the facts and the evidence to back it up.
Exactly. Good point.
Definitely a very confident Brian at this point, which we love to see. You
Amen to
mentioned
that.
something really, really important. You said you hated kind of where you were. Did that include, like, did the tool pouch feel heavy? you didn't even want to get up for work in the morning, kind of, is that what you mean? Or was it just like an unsatisfaction of the business? And could you describe that a bit more?
Yeah, I mean, it was just this heaviness walking with the tools, and then not not knowing, a lot of like uncertainty.
Mhm.
I had been stuck. Like, all business owners look at their bank account and they want that bank account to grow. It had been stuck for a long time. My mind was just stuck too. So I felt like I needed to um, learn a sales process, learn some process in order to get um, my wheels turning again, in order to start, feeling more enthusiastic about my business and delegating more things. Because I knew that was a big thing with me, was I had to delegate more. Because I was doing everything, like we were talking about the horse, like I was pulling everything. It's a lot easier to pull a cart with 3 horses than it is just 1 horse.
Mhm. 100,000%.
So I
Yeah.
feel like that was a huge reason. It was just I had to learn a sales system. I had to delegate. Um, if you want to be honest, like even my numbers, like I wasn't confident with numbers. I would just, like, I did have a spreadsheet at the time, but I was guessing a lot with certain
Mhm.
things. It was just, and then you would hear about the competition charging this, and you're like, okay, well maybe if I modify this, I can, get it a little bit lower. And it's just, it wasn't the best place for me. And
Race to the bottom, man.
yeah, exactly. But learning the sales system with SLE just completely changed my mindset, changed my life. And I can't thank you guys like more than enough for that.
Yeah, it's our honor. It's our honor
It
for
truly
sure.
is.
I can remember your first weeks attending class, and when you
Mhm.
kind of figured out what you should be charging and what you had to then do, I remember some nerves around that.
Mhm.
Yes, there was quite a
You,
bit of nerves.
yeah, can you describe that time for you? Like it must have been feeling pretty scary.
Yeah, back then I was just like, I was looking at the number and I was like, how am I supposed to sell that? Like how? I was just, it was really, I was really fearful. But if you want me to be like honest, I was also confident because you guys, like, Joe had done it. Joe was doing 1.3 in his van. I
Mhm.
mean, clearly he's doing it, so why can't I? So then that's when I started
Mhm.
really trying to learn the process. And it's, to be honest, like I still don't have it down 100%. Like
Mhm.
that's why I'm still with you guys, of course, and just constantly learning. But even just implementing small things has caused such a huge change in my business.
I love
Man.
that. Great share.
You making me, I feel like I'm cheesing over here. I can't stop like nodding and smiling. I'm like, man, Brian hit me in the heart every single time.
We're going through a lot of familiar feelings here. I want to go into
Mhm.
one that's maybe not so familiar. There's a lot of people that aspire for this one transaction, and this one wasn't in the pre-call notes at all, Brian. But I got to ask you, man, do you remember your first platinum sale when someone took your biggest offer that you would have never offered
Oh,
Mm.
before?
the first platinum sale, that's like losing your you know what, right? Like everyone remembers that.
Yeah. So tell us, what do you remember about that sale, man?
So that sale, I went into the home. I think this was in, no, this was in October, and I started with you guys in July. So this was like in November. Yeah, October, November. It was October. And I went in there, and something about it, I just felt confident. Like I walked in there and I felt confident because I've been with you guys for a few months now, starting to learn things. So I walked in and I felt confident. She wanted a few ceiling fan, like a ceiling fan hung, and like a switch changed in her bathroom.
Mhm.
And then that was like our basic option. And our platinum option was um taking down all the ceiling fans, putting in ceiling fan box, what new water shock protection points throughout the house.
Nice repackaging.
Yeah.
Nice, nice.
We also, she did mention something about a video camera, so we were able to do a video camera in the back linked to a flood cam, like a floodlight that had a camera in the back. So she had that linked together on one app. There was double tapping in the panel that we corrected, hot lights in her basement because she mentioned it was quite dim down there. So she bought everything that I offered, and it was truly an amazing experience. I still probably like once every like 2 to 3 weeks, I go back and I think about that.
You know, the closest comparison that I can think of was I threw discus in college. And I remember when they told you that a good throw was done, it would be as if you never felt it happen in the first place. And I feel the same thing happens with sales. When it came out nice, you walked in confident, you offered things that were well above and beyond what you asked for, but it felt natural. It didn't feel like pushing. Am I correct in that assumption?
Oh yeah, it was very natural, and she was very receptive to everything that I was saying to her.
Mhm.
Was that one a demand call then, or a two-call close?
It was a demand call that kind of turned into an opportunity call.
Love
So
it.
let the two-call close.
So
Nice.
little demand call lotto here. The old Brian, how much would you have sold before, if anything?
$400.
Okay. And so how did that platinum ticket end up for you, your first platinum? What was the total
My
ticket?
first platinum, it went to $9,800.
So from 400 to 98.
Yeah.
And this customer was happy at the end. There was no, you didn't pull out a gun and put it on her head or anything like
Oh,
that.
she kept thanking me. She kept thanking me over and over.
That's the magic.
Congratulations again, man.
That's
Gosh,
the
I
that's
love
the magic
platinum
right there.
stories.
Oh yeah.
What a feeling. What a feeling. Okay, awesome. So thank you for sharing that. Thank you so much. So you hit this roadblock, you realized you'd had enough, you decided to take the leap. I remember talking to you because you had some experience in other situations that had made you feel maybe not the most trust for coaching, if that's fair to say, Brian. Everyone here is trying to help you do this thing. You muster up the confidence. You come to class often, you do the role plays, you're always showing up on video, you do all the things and you keep showing up. It takes a few months, but you get your first platinum. You're now at a 65% closing ratio.
Hmm.
You mentioned your revenue seems to be tripling over what it used to be. Where
Yeah.
do you expect to finish this year if things keep going the way they are?
So I did some quick math before I was hopped on the podcast here. Since January, I've been averaging 58K a month.
Congratulations, brother.
Nicely
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
Very good.
If uh my fiscal year, which would be October to October, I expect to hit the 600K mark, which was um when I would have thought of that before SLE, I just thought there would have been no way. I would have to hire like multiple crews to do that, where it's just going to be me, my tech, and my CSI. Everything 600.
So
300,000 a piece. It's a solid deal, right?
a
Yep,
team of
exactly.
a team of three doing 600K with the odd DH from Dad, Trevor. Is
Yeah.
he watching the accounts and thinking, "Hey, what's this funny stuff going on?"
He it's funny that you brought that up. He keeps on saying how proud he is of me.
Oh my,
Man.
like to the heart. For any of us who've always wanted our father's approval, I mean, literally, like, son, you're proud. Oh, it just fall over
Yeah.
and die.
Yeah, right. Tugs at the heartstrings.
Oh man, what I'd pay for that.
Well, it's just the beginning, man. It's just the beginning for you guys. I know it maybe seems like a year's a long time for many, but you had your confirmation early on. I mean, in that first quarter, you were able to make that platinum sale. You're able to now average nearly 60K months, right? These are just little tweaks like you mentioned before, because it's not like we never have 100% of the process. And Joe's
Mhm.
testament to this too, right? Like we started talking about on our last live podcast about how you did the foundational training at your former
Mhm.
coaching company when you were doing 7 years in the field still to grow this process. You
Mhm.
did 7 times the same training,
Yep.
right? And that's what it takes to get to mastery. You have to keep going through this stuff. And it's not that your whole process is off, it's that there's just a little thing that you're going to gain the next time you read that book, or review that training or attend that class or role play this thing, right? Just these little things, Brian. So we know we're so confident in you, brother, and where you're headed. Is it okay if I ask for a quick reflection from you?
By all means.
If you were to give yourself or someone similar, or brother, or sibling, or a good friend who's an electrician, from where you are now to where you were, advice on what to do, both one's like, okay, I hear that you'd probably say service loop electrical, but like, what are the few things you would suggest they do to shape up their business just as mentor to mentee? What would you say?
I would say there's a few things, if that's okay.
Yeah, of
Yeah, by all
course.
means.
So one, I would hire someone to answer the phone. I really believe hiring a CSR. Um, it's not only taken a lot of pressure off me, like we were talking about before, really taking the hats off. It's also established us a little bit more as like a legitimate company. So that would be um important. Another one I have would be to stick to your offer, like what you guys say.
STYO.
STYO, figure out what you need to run a profitable company. If you don't know your numbers, you're just throwing a dart at a dartboard and hoping that, you're going to be making some money like I was doing before. So really figure out your numbers. And then once you figure out your numbers, establish a sales system and teach others how to do it so you can like not be so run down all the time, not working those 12 hours, 14 hours a day, hoping you're going to get a reply to your estimate, that you emailed over. So I would really, if that was the number one thing, I would say sales system, delegate, get your techs out there selling for you. That way you can kind of take a little bit, of a back seat for your company and just watch this thing grow. It's amazing.
Solid
Awesome.
advice. Solid advice, Brian.
Really good share.
That's it's really worked for me. And I mean, if I can do it, really, I don't see anyone can do it.
I love that. And I love that humility behind it because it's the thought of you are incredibly talented, whether you want to admit it yourself or not. I believe you're very talented. So for you to say, if I can do it, anyone can, it shows more faith to the process than anything else. And truly, it means the world to me that you say that.
Thank you.
Keep on believing, brother. So, if there was anything else that you could share with the listeners out there, because as you know, and one of the biggest reasons people come on here to join us is actually because telling your story helps others. You get to give back to the trade right now. So, is there anything else that you want to share before we end this interview, my brother?
Anything else I'd like to share with the trades? Just keep on going. Just keep doing what, just keep going. I know the trades can be tough, but it's going to be, it's going to be fruitful for sure. If you keep, if you do implement sales system, if you do really know your numbers, if you do hire CSR, it's going to be very, very profitable, very fruitful for you. And there is going to be, there's hope there for anyone that can do this.
Really good.
I hope that helps.
It does.
No, it does for sure. You know what? As Joe is addressing skill sets and your talents, I got to give you a proper acknowledgement, Brian. One of your talents is what you started with. You don't give up, brother. You just keep showing up. You keep doing the thing, and that's paying off huge. So keep going. For all of you that heard Brian, I mean, you got to do that thing. Keep going. Keep doing the thing. If you're not doing the thing, there's no time like now to start, and we're here to support you with that any way that we can. Brian, I want to thank you so much for joining us on this podcast today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
I had a great time. Great time today.
All right. Thanks.